Hey guys, Damon at Blackwood Lures. We're gonna make the flash, the tip version of the stinger version, make the flash version of it. As always, I always make up a bunch of these ahead of time, but sometimes I forget that. Oh yeah, I need to record that and show how I do that. So we're gonna take a number 2 hook here for the rear, or the stinger hook in this particular case, and we're gonna add a whole lot of flash to it. So it's like a flash fly. A lot of pike fishermen and salmon steelhead guys use this sort of fly, or sort of it's an attractor pattern. It's not designed to mimic anything. It's designed to just put a bunch of flash off in the water, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in the end. Had a little trouble there getting the thread started. Again, 50-pound test monofilament line. See, the Fly Tires bench reference mentions that you use at least 15-pound test line, and up to about there's that stinking super glue. Up to about 50-pound test, and I always used to use 50-pound. I've used some 30-pound. I would go with 60. I use 50-pound test as just the default, even with my bluegill patterns on this. It just works better. It's a lot stiffer and keeps things aligned a lot better. So, but anyway, other than that little mishap with the thing, with the super glue, spiraling turns on the way down, touching turns on the way back up, always. So basically what you're doing is lashing the glue on. You're lashing you're just lashing the line. I've never lost any line, and so I've never had one of these break on me. I mean, I've had the hook completely bent and broken before that joint there has broken. Seriously, all the time. And that may not be saying much because it's a very thin wire hook there. It's just a stinger hook, just sort of the backup in just in case the main hook doesn't really work. And to tell you the truth, in these waters, I call it a short strike hook as well, because you see people but anyway. This is the Crystal Flash, or the H2O Twist, that I get from Fly Tires Dungeon. I take a long strand of it, cut it in half, cut that in half, cut that in half. And you'll see how this works. You see, there we go. There's one. There's a quarter. And we're going to fold that in half to make an eighth. And we're going to fold that in half, make a 16th length. And it doesn't have to be all, and see, then you put that, try to get the ends. I don't have a hair stacker, so I just stack it in and chip it, and then put it on there. What you saw me doing earlier was building up a bump, and that bump is designed to help make the fiber flare out some. You see how it's just sticking up there? That's what that bump does, and that's what you want. And what we're going to do is go around the clock, 180, 360, 270, and 90, basically. In terms of orientation, what this is just basically a collar. You're basically, palmering it, and except we're doing this with synthetic materials. Fly Tires Dungeon, I love them. I always talk about their products simply because they're cheap, compared to what a lot of places are these days. Yep, for some reason we didn't have our tensioned. So again, we'll put one on the top, and then we'll put a piece on the bottom. Just 3 wraps is all it takes. I think that was maybe 4, but I try not to do more than 3, because I'm not using thin thread. That my threads are pretty thick, because I'm using not upholstery thread, but I'm using embroidery thread, and I'm using typically use thick synthetic outdoor nylon thread from my backpacking days. But it'll work here fine. Okay. And so we'll do these next 2, and what again, right there, just like that. Now, the thing I like about Fly Tires Dungeon is, again, they're cheap, but they also have another product called, this is called H2O Twist. Most of you call it Crystal Flash. It's the same thing. And can somebody explain to me why Crystal Flash, doesn't that just sound like a controlled substance? Crystal Flash, man. You know, it's like, but anyway. They make another substance, oh gosh, called Northern Lights. Oh, which has the fibers from the Congo hair spun around a Flashabou-like substance, and it gives the fly a lot bulkier thing, and so presentation. And so I'm thinking about moving to that product next, or at the very least, you know, maybe adding some. I have plenty of Congo hair here as well. I bought like every color they had a few years ago. I still have plenty of it. I always use white more than anything else. But as you can see, there's that. 3 wraps, 4, 5, 6. Oh yeah, well, now we're tensioning it on down. So once you tension it on down, you see how it begins to flare out even more, and that's what you want. It's flaring out even more because it's all coming up against that bump, and that's what, see how it's flaring out nicely? That's what you want with this. And again, this part is not going to have any bait on it. It's just purely for attraction. Okay. A little drop of glue there. Always half hitch it first. Drop of glue and then come back and whip finish that thing off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that, and just like that, and that glue is now down into the thread, and that I just couldn't get the right cut on it. My shears there are full of glue and gunk, and they need to be sharpened and cleaned, and I just don't get a precise cut as I want. But that's okay. So now we will use a number 3/0 hook. The only reason I don't use bigger hooks with this is because my fly tying vise just doesn't have, I don't have the saltwater jaws, pun intended, saltwater jaws. If I change out the jaws, they're the little black part there that you see me that holds the hook. Those are the jaws of the fly tying vise. If I had saltwater jaws, I could hold up to about a number 6/0 hook, which now once you get into a 6/0, 5/0, 6/0, 7/0 hooks is right about long in there is where you're starting to get into some larger catfish hooks. I mean, this 3/0 hook is a good average hook for average sized catfish. And I tend to use the smallest gear I can get away with. That's just the way I'm bent, you know. In other words, I'll probably use 3/0 to try to do heavy work, and then I'll bump it up to 6/0. And if that's not getting it, maybe bump it up to 8 or whatever. But you know. But anyway, so as you can see, there we go. Just tie it in right there. 3 wraps. Super glue. Control the stream. You know, want a nice even stream on there. And if you don't get that, you can always use your bodkin to level it on out later on. I use the thin stuff when it comes to CA glue. I don't use the thick things because we're not filling in a gap. What you're doing is just lashing this on, and that super glue finishes it out. I've never had one of these come apart on me ever. And I've caught some nice cats below the dam. Yep, there we go. There's that thread dyed. Yeah, we just got to the end of the spool there, and I just needed to put a new spool on. It took me a couple of seconds to figure that out. As you can tell, maybe I didn't major in engineering, right? I'm just sitting there trying to figure out what the heck. Oh gosh, I was just trying to figure out what happened, but eventually I just said that. I just decided, said screw it. So there you have it, right? And so here's how you thread it. Normally you can use a tool that, you know, how you get the spool up through that narrow little noodle there, a little pipe. Now, this is how I do it. There's a tool you can put down in there, but I just do it like this: thread it up as far as I can, and then just good old just air power, and it should gross you out. All that string just comes straight up through there, man, and it's just like, ah, it feels like you're about to eat straw or something. This happens as well. You have to orient the thing, and it just sometimes it doesn't. The thread, I fill these out. And again, I buy the big threads, the big spools of thread, and then use the drill with a pencil in it to fill up these smaller spools. Okay, and so I overfill it on purpose because I don't feel like having to and so it comes off and gets hooked on itself, and that's why I do that. So half hitch, there's plenty of glue on there. Don't need to add any more glue, and just here's that whip finish. Maybe need to keep saying I need to do a video of the whip finish. Just remind me if I do it, if I forget again. So there's it. There's one. I tie, I don't know how many. I think in this session I tied a whole bunch of them. I only tied about 3 here in the video, but even once I cut the camera off, I ended up tying up a whole bunch more of these. And so these are fun to put together. So again, you're going to add the bead, 3 beads. I've experimented with different beads. 3, 4, 5 seems to be about the right size, you know. I mean, there comes a point where adding more than 3 beads doesn't give you really any more. It just makes it longer, which is fine if you want a longer unit for bigger baits. But for here, we're doing I always go with 3 almost always. Because if you have to break off and you have 10 beads on that thing, well, dang, I lost 10 beads, you know. So I just use 3, man. So because you're going to lose gear. I mean, catfishing is bottom fishing, you know. It's not to say that cats are on the bottom all the time. I've seen them suspended all the time on the water. I see it all the time on the graph. They're just halfway up, halfway down, whatever. But for the most part, I'm dragging. You're going to lose gear. I mean, you're going to get hung up. And so I'm trying to tie these as quickly as possible, as cheaply as possible, so that when I lose it, I can just put another one on without having a heart attack. I don't see how these bass fishermen guys do it, man. They go out and spend $20 on one of these realistic, you know, crankbaits. You know what I'm talking about? The kinds that have the hinges on them and really swim like a real fish. Like $20, man. What are you gonna do? You serious? Are you kidding me? I can get here and see. There's that shows you just how powerful that super glue is. It will lock up on you, and sometimes I can't even finish the knot. So I don't ever worry about it coming apart. But anyway, these bass fishermen, look, if it costs me a few pennies, you know, I'll be honest with you, it cost me about that. It cost me about 30 cents on that particular hook. Yeah, about 30 cents per fly, something like that. And something like that, yeah. And so I'm not gonna cry over 30 cents, but if I'm having to spend, you know, $20 per thing, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna be like wanting to jump off in the water. You know, excuse me, I haven't had a cold. I mean, if I lose $20 stinking lure, man, I'm gonna be jumping off in the water to go get it. You know, I'm gonna just leave that at the bottom of the river. You know. Oh gosh, that's why I took up fly tying, because you can just make any lure you want, any harness you want, any system you want, and it's not going to cost you hardly anything. It's going to cost you time. If you don't have much time, then that's the thing. But in the middle of the winter, what do you do in the middle of the winter anyway when you're not fishing? You know, now catfishermen fish year round because, you know, the blue cats down here don't really stop feeding. They just keep moving, but, you know, and so there we go. Now, pretty much what you see here is about the last of, this is how I do it all day. I mean, this is how I tie these. So I'm going to just sign on off here and let you watch or listen to the rest of the video. And I will talk to you guys later.